Stalingrad, which I have to say I watched it about 9:30 in the morning. I wasn't quite prepared for what I was about to witness, but I came out after really kind of quite impressed, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely an impressive film. This is the first Russian film to use IMAX 3D technology, already been big in Russia. And you can't deny that it certainly feels big. It feels like an event film. The director wants to compare it to Saving Private Ryan. And it's the story of one of the most important, most devastating battles in the Second World War. So the Battle of Stalingrad, the Germans and the Russians fighting for control of the city. This is 1942, 1943. I mean, Saving Private Ryan a bit. I also thought of Pearl Harbor, actually, to be honest, because there is a love story in amongst the explosions as well. And also there's a bit of a nod to Titanic, really, because it's got this present-day narration by this elderly guy looking back to when his mother was caught up in the fighting in Stalingrad. So not a million miles away from the elderly Rose in Titanic, you know, telling her story. I'm not sure if that aspect entirely works. It feels a little bit forced, actually. But then you get into the actual war scenes, and I mean, it is a very impressively showy film. Very loud, very violent, lots of slow-mo fight scenes, and big and bold and operatic. Very fiery, a lot of fire in this, explosive scenes that, I mean, are almost apocalyptic in their scale. I just found the plot a little bit boring, to be perfectly honest. As beautiful, well, not as beautiful because it's horrific, but as beautifully horrific as it looks, as impressive as the scale is, I think the actual plot is pretty hard work. Of course, I mean, it was a bleak moment in history. The film can't be a laugh riot, but I think if you're making a big mainstream film, which this is, the job is to interest and to involve the audience. And as immersive as the 3D is, and the sheer scale of the film, I never felt that I really got that interest and that involvement. Part of the problem to be honest, might be things getting a little bit lost in translation because it is in Russian. But I think also part of the problem is that it's difficult to really tell some of the characters apart and to really work out entirely what was going on. I mean, of course, it was chaos, but I don't think that when you're watching the film, you necessarily want to be confused. Yeah.
One of the sort of standouts for me in terms of the performances was a girl called Maria Smolnikova, who played Katya, who was in the main part of the film was the kind of the young girl, young woman, but obviously the mother of the gentleman who's narrating the film, sort of thing. I thought she was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very macho movie, so a bit like Monuments Men that we talked about earlier. You know, the female characters aren't the main characters, and there aren't that many of them. The ones that are in there actually make a real impression.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about the visuals. The visuals are amazing. It looks incredibly impressive, and certainly if you like, you know, your war films, if you like your Second World War history, there's a lot in there. But did I really care about the people in there in the way that maybe I did when I was watching Saving Private Ryan? I don't think so.
It's interesting as well in terms of the director. I did a little bit of kind of digging on the director, and he's this kind of Russian, all singing, all dancing, everything. He's like he's an actor, he's a TV presenter, he owns it. Basically,
I know, and it's impressive that he's decided to be, you know, big in scale. He's not kind of trying to go down the small indie route and say, "Oh, we're going to go to, you know, art house cinemas and be the foreign film." You know, no, he wants to make a big blockbuster movie, and it doesn't matter what language it's in. You know, he wants to make a big movie that's big all around the world. He's thinking globally, and that's actually interesting because that hasn't happened a huge amount in Russian cinema. But he's really, you know, thinking just outside of his country and thinking about, you know, opening in America. I mean, there are big hopes for this film in America. I'm not sure whether that, you know, it's actually going to be a big hit, but it's certainly being released in a lot of places.
And it's interesting as well because you'd think if he wanted to get that worldwide attention for it and success, he would use a name of sorts. So whether it was a Russian actor who no longer, you know, lived, you know, was specific to living in Russia or whatever, who'd kind of, you know, become part of the whole Hollywood kind of cycle. But he doesn't do that. He very much sticks to actors that are unheard of.
Yeah.
Brave move to make, no?
Brave move, and I think that they were hoping that things like that could be counteracted perhaps by a Best Foreign Language Oscar nomination, which I know they were pushing for, which didn't happen. So that's obviously a bit of a hurdle now to overcome because, you know, when you get that, it's a big push for you in terms of marketing and press. That didn't happen for this. So, I mean, it's all there on screen. You can see the money and you can see the action and the explosions, but quite whether it's going to cross over, because I don't think the human interest part of it entirely works.